Why did my stoic dad's dying confession make me rethink everything about my childhood? I was helping my dad clean out the garage when he suddenly stopped sorting through old boxes and asked if we could talk. He'd been diagnosed with heart failure 6 months earlier, and these deep conversations were becoming more common. Before, my dad was never one for emotional talks. He showed love by checking my tire pressure and making sure I had good health insurance. But that afternoon, his hands were shaking, and as he opened a beer, he told me he needed to share something before it was too late. He said he'd carried this secret for 30 years and didn't want to die with it eating at him. My mom had passed 5 years earlier from cancer, so I assumed this was about her. I was right, but not in the way I expected. The story started on their honeymoon in 1992. They'd gotten married at our family church with 200 guests and driven to a cabin in the mountains for a week. My dad was 23 and completely in love with mom. He'd saved for months to make their honeymoon special, even brought champagne and roses to surprise her on their first night as husband and wife. But when he got to the cabin after picking up groceries in town, he found my mom in bed with someone else. She was with her cousin Vinny, who'd been at their wedding 12 hours earlier. Vinny, who'd given a toast about how lucky my dad was. Vinny, who'd been coming to family dinners since they were kids. My dad said he stood in the doorway holding grocery bags full of food for romantic dinners while his new wife scrambled for clothes. Vinny just sat there shirtless. My mom started crying and begging my dad to let her explain. She said it wasn't what it looked like, even though they were both naked in the honeymoon bed. The part that killed me was how my dad handled it. Instead of leaving or starting a fight, he quietly put away the groceries. He slept on the couch that night while mom cried in the bedroom. The next morning, he drove them both home in silence. He didn't tell anyone because he was too ashamed and confused to process it. They went to see their pastor the following week. Pastor Williams was old school and told my dad that marriage was sacred. He said forgiveness was the foundation of a union. He made my dad pray for the strength to move past this temptation and work on building a family. My dad was young and religious and thought maybe this was just a test of his faith. So they stayed married and pretended nothing happened. They moved into a little apartment and started their life together. My mom acted like the perfect wife, and my dad threw himself into his work. They went to church every Sunday and hosted family dinners where Vinny would sometimes show up. My dad said those dinners were torture, but he smiled through them. Things seemed to get better over the years. They bought a house and had me when they were 29. Becoming a father changed everything for him. He finally felt like they were a real family, and maybe the past could stay buried. He worked 60-hour weeks to give us a good life. He coached my little league team and never missed a school play. Then it happened again when I was 6. My dad came home early from a business trip and found my mom with Vinny in their bedroom. The same cousin, the same betrayal. Except this time there was me to think about. A 6-year-old kid who loved his mom and had no idea why daddy was sleeping in the guest room for a month. My dad said he packed a bag that night and was ready to leave. He'd gotten as far as loading his car when he came to check on me one last time. I was asleep clutching a teddy bear he'd bought me. He stood in my doorway realizing that if he left, I'd grow up in a broken home like he did. He unpacked his car and went back to pretending everything was fine. The conversation in the garage was getting heavy. My dad was crying, which I'd never seen before. He said staying was the biggest regret of his life, not because he didn't love me, but because the stress and heartbreak had slowly killed him. The 60-hour weeks turned into health problems. The fake smiles turned into diabetes. The pretending turned into a heart attack at 50. He grabbed my hand with both of his and looked me in the eyes. He said he wanted me to have a normal family so badly that he sacrificed his own happiness. He spent 24 more years with my mom after the second betrayal. He smiled through family photos and anniversary parties. He even spoke beautifully at her funeral about their love story while knowing it was all a lie. I sat there trying to process that my entire childhood had been built on this massive secret. Every Christmas morning, every family vacation, all an act by a man who just wanted his son to have stability. He told me he wished he'd left and found real love. He wished he'd shown me that self-respect mattered more than keeping up appearances. He wished he'd been happy instead of just pretending to be. His health problems all stemmed from decades of stress and burying his pain in work and food. He literally loved me to death. We sat in silence for a while, listening to cars pass by outside. My dad finished his beer and stood up slowly before patting my shoulder. "Oh, and son," he said quietly, "Vinny was your biological father. He's coming here tomorrow to talk to you." My eyes shot open. "He's got a lot to say to you." Full story on channel linked below.